Hi and welcome to this presentation on light. Light is actually what we love, and that's why we founded Fagerhult Lighting Academy back in 2004. The purpose with the Fagerhult Lighting Academy is everything around knowledge, because we need to package knowledge in a way that it's easy accessible, and we want to share the knowledge that we have with lighting with you guys. And lighting has become a much more complex thing after the new light sources when LED started to introduce into the market. So it's become a little bit more tricky, and that's why we have to touch on subjects that we didn't touch on years back. So our task is to collect knowledge, and we go to different seminars, we go to conventions, we go to talk to researchers, do our own research projects, and in that way we get in a lot of research results and a lot of knowledge connected. Then we have to refine it a little bit to say, of all this knowledge, what is it that we need to push to you guys? What is that our customers need? What is it that the humanity sort of need to know to get further on with that? And that's how we interpret these kind of things, and we push it further on to the people who can actually benefit from it. Because there's no need in doing all these things if there's nobody who has any benefits from lighting. And at the end of the day, we try to package it and communicate it like we do right now to you guys. And today we are going to present to you the thing we call the power of ambient lighting. Those of you who work with lighting knows probably that most of the lighting standard around the world talks about lighting on a horizontal level. We can look up in any standard, any book we like, and we see we'll have 500 lux on the table, 200 lux in a restaurant, and we can have a lot of that. But actually the way we work is somewhat different. So if we start to think about the sun outside, and we imagine we are being outside, we have a lot of light coming from the sun. Actually, everything that sustains life on Earth comes with the radiation from the sun. And it contains a lot of green, a lot of yellow, and a lot of blue light that comes during the day. So that kind of light source keeps us alive and healthy and awake during the daytime. And in the night, we switch to the moonlight, which contains much more red light. And the red light puts us to sleep. So the blue light that we have during the day keeps us awake, and the red light during the night makes sure that we can have a good night's sleep. When the moon goes away, we not always have the full moon. Sometimes we have no moon at all, and the only thing we have left is the starlight. And the starlight is just enough light to generate a response on our retina so that we actually can see what's going on, not in color, not in full motion anymore, because that only works with bright daylight. So our visual system is calibrated for daylight. It's calibrated for working in an environment that's very powerful. So if we imagine the Earth here like that, we evolved in Central Africa, and the daylight in Central Africa is characterized by high lighting levels, not many shadows, good color rendering, high color temperatures. And when you think about everything about the light that we have evolved in as a species that goes on in Central Africa, you actually have a pretty good feel of lighting. There is a certain lighting level on the horizontal way, but what we're going to talk about today is more on the vertical plane, because that's how we experience the world. Because to understand that, we need to have a closer look at how the eye works. The eye is our organ that receives all kind of visual information and puts it back into our brain. About a third of our brain is allocated for handling visual expressions, and that's about 83% of all the information around us comes in through our vision. So the eyes are a very big gateway for sampling information into our visual system. And it works the way that we are looking at something out there, and the image of that goes straight into our fovea centralis, our sharp center vision, where we have full color vision, we have a high resolution, and we see everything in perfect detail in that little area in the middle. And when we are walking around there, imagine we were surviving in Africa, we are looking for food, we are looking for somebody wants to hunt us down, or if we should hunt some animals, everything goes on in the vertical plane. And when you have the horizon, then above the horizon, you have the bright blue sky and the sun that reflects the light down into the bottom of your retina. And back in 2002, George Brainerd and his research team found out that in the bottom of the retina, we actually have photosensitive ganglion cells that controls our hormone balance. So that means that if we have a lot of blue light outside that's coming from the sky down in our bottom of our retina, we get a high cortisol level in our bloodstream. It releases hormones. It suppresses also melatonin, and that balance is what makes us be alert and motivated and happy, and the other one that makes us fall asleep. Now, it's no problem as long as you're outside, but the moment you go inside a built structure, you don't have that picture of that blue sky anymore. You have a picture of a corner of a wall between the ceiling and the wall. And you don't have very high brightnesses at that part. It may all sound a little bit fuzzy, but we need to look a little bit closer into how the neural pathways goes from our vision into our brains. The first one that we've known for around 150 years is the pathway that goes from our retina up to our visual cortex in the back of our head, where the images are created. That's a very formal pathway. We've known that for many years. But in 2002, we found out that there's an extra pathway, a neural pathway, that goes from the bottom of the retina up to our hypophysis, and our hypophysis regulates our daily and seasonal rhythm. It tells us whether it's day or night, summer or winter. From there, it moves on to the prolonged spinal cord, where it releases a hormone called cortisol, and cortisol is a positive stress hormone. It keeps us motivated, happy. I normally call it our wake-up happy hormone, and that sort of gives us a boost. From there, it moves up to the pineal gland, and the pineal gland is in charge of our hormone, of our melatonin balance. So that means that if we have a high melatonin level, we fall asleep. If we have a low one, we are awake. So if we're exposed to powerful blue light during the middle of the day, we will have high cortisol and very low melatonin. But when we move indoor, we don't have that kind of light level anymore, and slowly the balance changes, the same as when the sun goes down and the moon comes up. And after 6 hours, where you're deprived from the powerful daylight, you fall asleep. So that means that if you commute to work in the morning and you hit the office at 8 o'clock and you get in there, then you have a high cortisol level because you've been commuting to work, and a low melatonin level. And when you're in there working, it becomes 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's when you fall asleep, because there's no more blue light, no cortisol, but lots of melatonin. And that chemistry has been there from thousands of years or millions of years, and that's very hard to work. And we've only had indoor architecture for around 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years. So it means a lot to us that we need that daily rhythm. When we look at the basic balance between cortisol and melatonin, the yellow curve on this graph is the melatonin, and it shows us it's very, very low during daytime, and it peaks in the night when we are asleep, and the cortisol level is the opposite. And the balance of these two either tells our body whether it's day or night, and it keeps us awake or makes us fall asleep. If we just revisit the spectral distribution from the sun, it looks like that. It contains a lot of blue, a lot of green, and a lot of yellow. And that's sort of the colors of the day. And when we look at the moonlight, it contains much more red and much less blue, and that's the colors of the night. When we look at light sources, for instance, like the new LED light sources, we look at a light source called 6,500 Kelvin, which is a very cool. It could also be a 4,000. It's not that characteristic, but a 6,500 looks like that. And it contains a lot of blue light and very little red, actually close to normal daylight outside. And when we look at a 2,700 Kelvin, which mostly reminds us of an incandescent lamp or more warm, cozy lamp, it has this distribution. So the 6.5 is great during daytime, but not that great during nighttime. We would like to go for a 2,700 at that time instead. So that was a bit about our heritage, but you've probably all been to the movies, and when we go to the movies and we look at the movie screen, sometimes you can experience the world vanish. Just when you look at the vertical plane, you look at the size of the movie screen, and if it's a great movie, the rest of the world goes away. And that's exactly how we judge brightness. So if you come to a friend's home and your friends, or you think it has been redecorated and you feel it's much brighter now, it's maybe because they've changed the brown walls to white walls. Because whatever goes on in the vertical plane, plus minus 30 degrees, that's how we judge brightness. The conclusion of that is that we watch the world in a vertical plane. That's one of the things you should take with you from today. That's how we judge brightness. And back in 2006, we started together with Lund University a research to find out how much light do we need, for how long time, how powerful, and what kind of light colors do we need. And the test setting was that we had a person sitting in front of working at a desk looking straight forward and looking at a brightly lit wall. And the illumination was that we had table lamps that lit up the task area, and we had wall washers that lit up the wall areas. And when we were working with that, we aimed for a uniform light lit level on the walls, plus minus 30 degrees. That sort of showed us this is where the brightness is. And then we started to change the brightness level. We started off with 20 candles per square meter, moved our way through 100 candles per square meter. And from there we went to 350 candles per square meter. Now 350 candles per square meter is a lot of light. It takes a lot of energy to generate that kind of lighting levels, and 20 is a little bit low. And we found out by taking blood samples, analyzing the test persons and regulating the lighting level, that at 100 candles per square meter we actually triggered the biological response. Now most people know that now, or most people in the lighting industry know that now, that we need that kind of lighting level to make people feel awake. So the next question was, what about the color temperature? And when we put in a warm color temperature like 3000 Kelvin, we had exactly the same results as if we put in a cooler one at 4000 Kelvin. So the color temperature doesn't influence the biological response. That is the intensity. So to sum up a little bit of that, lighting up the task area, lighting up the walls with a cool light or a warm light doesn't really matter, up to 100 candles per square meter. And if you have that, you trigger the biological response and you feel good. Now this might all look very sort of sketchy, but we actually had real people working there at the university. And this is a picture of the setting where people were working and doing the test. They sat in these areas for two days. We had 36 students coming in, and we took blood samples on them. We changed the lighting level. They answered a lot of questionnaires on their computers, and we found out how they felt, how motivated they were, and also measured their biology or their changes in biology. So this actually led us to do lighting design a little bit different. This is one of the spin-off projects. If you look at this picture here, it's a very simplistic picture, but in the old days we would probably have had 2 rows in the middle of the hallway, but here we move 1 row closer to the wall to create a vertical brightness so that the space feels nice. If you measure the lighting level on the floor, it'll probably still be the same, or it will still be the same, but it looks better and it feels better when you have the vertical brightness. So the secret about biology and light is that biology is all about intensities. If you want to have a biological response, make sure you have big windows, you can take the curtains aside, you have much of light in there, you have white walls, powerful lighting on the wall. That's what triggers the biology. If you talk about colors, it's all about emotions. So if people say, I feel better here, you have to know whether it's the feel of it or whether it's the biology that you are aiming for. So if somebody tells you you can have a warm light here, it makes you feel good, yeah, maybe it does, but it doesn't change the biology. So remember that biology is about intensities, colors is about emotions. And if you want a few things to take away from here, then the first thing I want you to remember, or I urge you to remember, is that our brains still think we're in Africa. We only left 120,000 years ago. We lived there for 7 million years. And right now, your brains are trying to understand what is going on based on a reference that you are in Central Africa. And now you're actually indoor, so it's a very, very different job for the brain. You can choose any color temperature you like because, as I said, it's only the intensities that influences our bodies. And finally, we experience the world in a vertical plane. We humans are standing up erect, we are looking horizontal, we are looking at what's in front of us. We don't look that much at the ceiling or at the floor, we're actually looking straight ahead in front of us, and that's where we judge brightness, and that leads to our well-being. So the last thing is just that we need a lot of light. It's not that easy to make lighting enough to create a biological response, and it's hard with the energy frames that we have within our politics today. But if we want to do that, we need very high amounts of light to generate those 100 candles per square meter. But it's possible, and it's actually human-centric lighting. It's lighting for people, and that's how we like to feel. Thank you very much.